Oh. All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Yirches Mesachas Yevamos. Moving along through the second pair. So now we get to the meat and potatoes. We've already been in the meat and potatoes. It continues, and we'll continue Mitzvah Hashem a little while. So we were discussing yesterday. We had a machlokas between Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna Amarav regarding a shomeres yavam. So you have two brothers, right? One dies, he leaves over a wife, and the shaila is her mother. Is she mutter to the brother or not? Okay, now is a machlokes perhaps during if she dies, whether he's mutter to her. So if you say, If the daughter dies. If the daughter dies, right, then the mother, right, would, and if you say the mother is usher, right, it's because there is zika is a strong enough bond, right, that he was sort of married to her. He had the zika with her, and therefore her mother would be prohibited. Okay.
Wait,
or do you say
what's the case? I didn't follow.
Two brothers.
Yeah.
Two brothers. One is married to her. Okay. He dies.
Yeah.
She's false to Yibum. Okay.
Right.
Now let's say that she dies. All right. She died before he ever did Yibum. She has a single mother. Is he allowed to marry her mother? That's the question. That's the machlokes. No. His brother, his dead brother's mother-in-law. Remember, he was married to him. All right. Yeah. He dies. Before he takes her for Yibum or Chalitza, she dies. Can he marry her mother?
That lady should run.
Right. Fine. So that was the case. So we got to the case, and the Gemara just wants to bring a proof for one of the shitas. So Lema Masaile. Oh, good question.
18A1.
Yidches with Aleph, right? 18A1. So the Gemara is where do we leave off? For last word second. So Lema Masaile. Let's see a proof. Let's look at our Mishnah. Yidin Tushmeisa Mutter Biachaisa. Right? So it says he's mutter to her sister. So we have a Mishnah later on which says if the Yavama dies, he's mutter to go ahead and marry her sister. So
That's not her when she dies.
Right. So it says it. So he says, oh, ba'imalo. So we go around from there. So he says, no, who didn't feel be'ima? It's even her mother. So if that's the case, why didn't you say more of a case? Why did you say b'achaysa, not even? Since it wants to say a stama case of a man whose wife dies is mutter to her sister, right? But he's forbidden to her mother. So daka b'achaysa, daka b'achaysa imalo. So havi they yisur deraisa because that's isur deraisa. His deceased wife's mother. Right, that's the deraisa. So Tananam Seifa mutter b'achaysa. Therefore, also we want to talk about the sister, not the mother. Therefore, it says that also b'achaysa. But when it comes to the mother, it would be different in this case. Fine. Meisav Rav Huna bar Chia, Asaba Maimer, Umeis Shnia. Right, Umeis. So now let's say we have
Rav Huna say that it was mutter for the guy to take the mother.
Yeah, Rav Huna, that was Rav Huna Marav. Right.
Okay.
So, right.
But
Shemer Siyavim Shemesa, right? Mutter Be'ima, right?
Okay. But Rav Yehuda says
he argues. Fine.
Okay.
Meisiv Rav Huna bar Chia Asaba Maimer. Now let's say so there's two brothers, one of them dies, and he does Maimer, right? Remember, we said Maimer, right? The Torah says take her as a Yavama. Right, take her as a Yavama means bia, right? You take her as a wife through relations, right? That's how you take her. There is no kedushin, right? When it comes to marriage, the Torah recognizes there's kedushin, there's nesuin, right? That there's two steps. There's the betrothal part, and there's a full marriage, right? When it comes to yibum, it's just full marriage.
No star?
Huh?
No marriage contract?
Not midaraisa, no. There's no kedushin, there's no kesef, there's no acquired, right?
No.
And even with a shari, I mean, you're referring more to the ksuba, right? But that's something else, right? So over here,
no, there is. He gets he gets the brother's ksuba, doesn't it?
Right. We'll see later on. Yeah. We'll get later on. Anyways, umeis. So now the guy dies, umeis, but he does mimer to her. All right. He does mimer. Now he does like a kedushin derabbanan. It's not recognized midaraisa, right? Also, a mimer umeis. Now he dies. So wait, was she still? Did he didn't really take care of the yibum with her because he never married her, never did chalitza. He only did mimer. So shnia choletzes if he was married to another woman. So if Shimon was married to another woman, shnia choletzes v'lo misivemis. So the second one, if there's a third brother, so she does right chalitza, right? Shnia choletzes v'lo misivemis. So she does chalitza na'yivim because she sort of tsaras erva, sort of not. So tamad ava b'maimer. The reason because she did mimer, but let's say he didn't do mimer, right? She fell, right, and then died, right? So now this is the case of the Mishnah where after the Reuven dies, then the other guy is born, then Levi's born, right? So he says the only reason the mimer, it would sound like the second one can go ahead and do yibum. Another, he can go ahead and do yibum to her. Now wait. How is that possible? Zika, but if you say that Zika is something, and therefore when Reuven died, she had Zika with Shimon. And if you say Zika is a strong enough bond, almost like marriage, therefore she would be the tzara of her who was married to his brother before he was born. And therefore that should be usher. How can he do Yibum?
Those are sisters.
Zika. No. So in this, right? So therefore, in this case, if you hold that there's the Zika bond is like a marriage, so now the Yavama just by her husband dying, it's like she's married to Shimon, and therefore it's like the two of them are co-wives, right? So, but it says only if he does mimer can he do. But in that case, it says he can't go ahead and marry. So my answer is, no, even if he doesn't do mimer, it's just halacha by mimer. But even if the mimer is not done, right? Also, she only does chalitza, right? If he dies and he does nothing, he only does chalitza and not even. Why? So because of the Zika, because they're sort of co-wives, and she is Eish Zakish Lebelamo. And the reason I wanted to do Maimer Lafuki mi Beis Shammai to exclude the opinion of Beis Shammai. The Amri Maimer Koina Kinyan Gam. According to Beis Shammai, okay, if Maimer is done, we said before Maimer is a complete suffix, only their button. According to Beis Shammai, if he does Maimer, it's like it's like a full marriage, right? Koina Kinyan Gamor, and therefore, if he does Maimer, they're complete co-wives. If they're complete co-wives, then according to Beis Shammai, right? So since she's an erva, because she was Eish Zakiv Shaloi Balamo, because she was once upon married to Reuven, who died before Levi was ever born. Therefore, that Sarah, her co-wife, is the co-wife of an erva, and therefore she would go off and no chalitza. So therefore, the Mishnah wants to teach you a case of Maimer to teach you that the chalitza is required. Fine. Esvei. Abaye. Esvei Abaye. V'snagam of Yechas Manal. Shnei Achim Echad. There were two brothers. They were alive at the same time. And one of them died. So go back to our case. And one of them died. Below Vlat. The Amar Hasheni Hazel Asas B'Maimer V'Yivimto. And so this guy, so Reuven died. Sorry, right? This guy died. And so there's two brothers there. Right, and he was going to go ahead and do right to do mimer to her, right? Then he speaks with mimer until Levi was born before the mimer. All right, Levi that was born, third brother. So Umeis, right, and then before he's able to do mimer, he dies. So Harishayna Yaitza Meshuv Eishach Shalom. No, they're brothers.
No, but this one.
They're brothers.
Oh, he was born.
He was born, right? But the problem is now, this was his brother, but he was never alive at the same time. So therefore, she is an erva to him because I was married to his brother, and it was shalom b'makom mitzvah. Now, umeis, and then he dies. Harishayna, the first lady, she is pater from everything because she was because she was married to Reuben, and Reuben died before the lady was born. Ushniya, and the second one, the lady was married to Shimon, right? Who he was alive during the same time. Does chalitza yibum? Why? So what must it be? It must be that she has zero shaykhs with her former sister-in-law, right? Because now the zika is nothing. She was never married or anything. She's not co-wife, sir. Right? They were just sister-in-laws. They're not co-wives. And therefore, it's okay. Be a marti zika. But if you say that zika is a strong bond, the zika, she should be an she should be a co-wife of the erva, right? Remember, he said she was an erva. Therefore, there's nothing required for her. She can go off and marry whoever she wants. So if she's her co-wife, then she should be pater, right? So, but it must be there's no zika. So Gemara says, no, Hamani, whose opinion is this? This is Rameir. The Amar ain't zika. This is the opinion of Rameir. Oh, there is no zika. So according to Rameir, there is no zika. If you don't do Maimer or Yibum or Chalitza, you're not connected, and therefore there's no shaykhs. We sphere later Rameir ain't zika, and this Rameir whole ain't zika. Well, tonight we go to the Mishnah. Arba achim. Four brothers. Actually, don't really need such pictures, but all right, yeah, four brothers. Yeah, we'll do it right now. All right, four brothers. All right, these are four brothers, right? Yeah. So he said four brothers. Now these two guys, right? We'll call them Reuben, whatever. We don't give them names. Reuben, you're welcome. Now these two guys, two brothers, marry two sisters. All right, there's a Mishnah later on. Now the two guys who married the sisters both died, so they both died. Now eat without kids, so they both need yibum. But now remember, so let's say to him, okay. So he maybe if he does yibum to her, what's the problem? The issue is he also has zika to her. So this woman is actually the sister of someone he has zika to, right? And she also is the sister of someone he has zika to. So they do chalitza not yibum because each one, both of them, right? Each brother does chalitza. These guys are Savar Rameir ain't zika, and if you'd say Rameir holds there is no zika at all, Sahani betrayed Batikasin. So what's the problem? Each of them are falling from a different house. In other words, she comes from the house of Reuben, she's coming from the house of Shimon, right? And highly having the chadan, and each one should be able to do yibum, right? You take one wife, and I'll take the other one.
So this issue is only because they both croak at the same minute.
No. They both doesn't make a difference, but they both died. So each one has to do yibum, right?
The problem is they both croaked before they did the yibum on the first one. So now two people are stuck.
Yes, right. But it's at the same time. In other words, you don't do yibum at that moment, right? Oh, they die before this guy dies, and 6 months she doesn't, do yibum chalitza yet. Each brother's like, you do it, and all of a sudden the other brother died. And all of a sudden now we got two of them.
Waiting period anyway.
Right, yeah. Right.
So one of them had a Zika bond.
So obviously there is Zika.
Yeah. Oh, before.
Right? Yeah. So these are the Zika. Right? So the other means Zika. Really, there is no Zika. So Mishin Diksaber also about the Mrs. Yivim, the Dilma, Admiyabim Chad, Mayis Idach. The Kabbalah B'mitzvah Yivim. Now, what's the Chashash here? Let's see. Now, the reason why we say don't do Yibum is what's going to happen here. One is what perhaps, right? Dilma Adiyad, right? Once one does Yibum, okay. Now it's his wife. If this guy dies before he does Yibum or Chalitza, there's only one brother left. But she can't marry him because he's married to her sister. So now they've just been mevatel the mitzvah of Yibum or Chalitza because it's his sister, because it's his wife now. Right. So better, right? There. Better both of you do Chalitza, then one do Yibum, and perhaps the other one will not have the mitzvah or Yibum or Chalitza done to them. That's
So
big
only
chashash.
one of them needs.
Right.
No, both have to do it.
Both do
Both
chalitza.
have to do it, yeah.
Right, because if you do yibum, perhaps the other brother, the other one might get stuck.
Then you make sunnah for no reason.
Why? Meaning chalitza, because she's a
Yeah, that's a
chalitza.
real thing.
Right, it's also a question. Bother me. Yeah, this is question. Right.
She's widowed.
No, widow's okay. She's on the Kohen Gadol. It's just a grusha. Right. So now, as Gemara says, "Vi ain't zika," and if you hold there's no zika, tibatel. That's what it says. I understand. What's the big deal? So if you hold there's no zika, right? And over here, the reason wasn't because of zika. The reason was because she might become the only brother who she might fall to in the end would be already married to his sister. Vi ain't zika tibatel. Who cares? Ain't zika. He holds there's no zika. Mutter levatel the mitzvah yibum. And we have a case which we'll just bring right now. There's mutter levatel the mitzvah yibum. The Tanakh we learn in the Mishnah, right? A lot of these Mishnahs we said we have later on. So the Tanakh Rabban Gamliel Omer in miyana. Now a guy is married to a minor, right? A kedushin derabanan. I guess the kedushin that came from her her mother or her older brother. Okay. Now, and he dies. So, Imiana, so now she can do miyun and basically nullify the whole thing. So if she does miyun,
She can only do miyun at 12.
Like you said, she married the daughter of his. He married
so this
the daughter
case,
of Reuben married the daughter of Shimon.
No. There were two brothers married, two sisters.
Okay.
Right? I think that was the case. Yeah. All right. Right now, right. That's what happens. Right now, here's what happens. I had the case a little wrong. I had to use a little Rashi. Now, they're both married to two sisters. She's Gedola, right? She looks older, right? And she's Katana. All right. This guy dies.
Shimon got the second.
Now he's not so much married to her because she still has the opportunity to do it. She's a minor. When she gets to 12, she goes, and then that's it. And then he goes by, and therefore she was never married to him. And therefore, if that scenario happens, he can marry her. Because yes, they're sisters.
So she can say no, she refused, and then he married
So
her.
now what happens? He dies, and she's 10 years old. So Gemara says, so if she does miyun, then okay, great. Go ahead and do miyun, right? You never married, and then you take miyun.
Right.
If she doesn't do miyun yet, let her grow old until she's 12. And let her stay with the marriage. And then once she officially stays with the marriage, this one is pater. No yibum, no chalitza. So you see over here, Rabban Gamliel is being mevatel. If he was so worried about doing the mitzvah of yibum or chalitza, just say, you know what? Do miyun. That marriage never happened. And then take your brother's wife in the midst of yibum.
Just wait to see what happens. So
why wait? No.
3 months,
You
3 years.
you coach her. You say, okay, you have to do miyun. In order, and
And
the point which you can do miyun. But over here, we're giving her an option to stay with the marriage.
Of course.
Why? Of course.
3 years already.
Who cares? But over here, there's a mitzvah of yibum. But there's a mitzvah of yibum. Maybe the mitzvah is more important than staying with your marriage, than your love story.
Oh, so it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for the
Yeah, but there's no
if you look for
mitzvah,
the benefit of the woman, then it's better to
So Amar Lei, so that was Rabban Gamliel. So he says Amar Lei, Rabban Gamliel, the Rabbi Meir Karamis. Well, you're asking Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Meir. Lo, right? He said Karamis. Well, how can you come in? That's what we say. Rabbi Meir Chayesh Afilu Sveka. In the case of the 4 brothers and the 2 sisters, over there, Rabbi Meir so Chayesh. Even in case of a suffix was perhaps. If you want to have one of them does yibum, the other one might die, and therefore you can battle it, right? Even if it was a vadai, right? He wouldn't be chayish, right? And in other words, always chosh for suffix. So even vadai, we're not mevatel, right? Levatel chayish. Dil man deloi chayish, and the one is adding for a suffix. Afilu vadai lo chayish, or man the chayish afilu sveka chayish. So he says no that. Over there, in the first case, right? It's something that could happen. So the guy who holds that we don't want to be mevatel, even to the point where something might happen, we're not going to be mevatel the mitzvah. Versus Rabban Gamliel, who holds even if it's a Vadai, right? If you Vadai become this minor, Vadai becomes his wife, we are going to be Mavato. We don't care about being Mavato Yibum. So according to Rabban Gamliel, I don't care about being Mavato Mitzvah Yibum. According to Rav Meir, we're so worried about being Mavato Mitzvah Yibum, even in the case of a Chashash, a Suffolk, perhaps the other brother might die. Don't do Yibum, do Chalitza in order not to be Mavato. Fine. Amarlei Abayla Rav Yosef. Hod the Rav Yehuda. That which Rav Yehuda says, right? So if you look back in the previous pages of Machlekes between, right, there was Rav Huna Amar Rav, who says Shomer Seva Mutter, right, Be'ima, versus Rav Yehuda, Shomer Seva Shemei Sasur. So now over there, Rav Huna is quoting Shem Rav, and Rav Yehuda is just stop. All right. So that which Rav says Abaye, that which Rav Amalei Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef, how did Rav Yehuda, that which Rav Yehuda said. The Shmuley is actually the opinion of Rav is the opinion of Shmuley. The Tanai we learn in the Mishnah. Shaimeres Yam Shekidesh Achiv Es Achaisa. So now, what's the case over here? You got three brothers, right? The first oldest brother dies. So Kidesh, now what happens? She has a sister, right? She has a sister, not a co-wife, a sister, right? Stam, she's never married. Now, this guy has Kedushin with her.
Is this born after kid?
No, regular kid, regular brother.
She's a sister, right?
They're sisters, right?
Okay.
And this guy,
he's a brother.
Now one of these brothers is supposed to be Yibum Chalitza, all right? So
He was in a Kedushin.
And he was born before he died.
Good question.
He was born before.
No, there were three brothers, all year apart, no issues there.
Right.
Yeah. So one of them do Yibum Chalitza. So this guy said, I don't want to do it. You know, I'm going to do it. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do Kedushin with her sister. He does Kedushin with the sister. Not Nesuah, not full marriage, but Kedushin. He does Kedushin with the sister. So obviously, if he has Kedushin with his sister, he can't do Yibum because it's his wife's sister.
Kedushin took place after the guy.
After, yeah.
In that 3-month waiting period.
Anytime. Yeah, before anything was done. You got to go ahead and wait, right? Don't go ahead and marry her, right? Marry her until he does Yibum, right? In other, that's right. So you see that. Or right, do Yibum or Chali. So wait to go ahead and marry her. So what do you see over here? That the Zika, since there's a bond,
Yibum can't be an option.
What do you mean?
So that means he's miskadeshes to that lady, and at the same time he's doing Yibum, which means
no, the other brother, right? See, right? So you see over here. So we tell him to go ahead and wait to go ahead and marry her, right? Because she's Achos Zukukaso. Right? She is the sister of his Zakuka. Yeah. We don't want him to be married to her. You can't really get married to her. You jumped the gun. He did Kedushin. He did Kedushin. But he didn't do Nesuah. He didn't do Nesuah. He just did Kedushin.
No.
He just betrothed her.
But what would you do Kedushin? You got the woman stuck.
Right. Kedushin is Erusin
is
No,
Erusin is Kedushin.
Kedushin is a higher level.
No, Erusin is Kedushin.
Oh,
Nesuah is the final. Nesuah is the final.
Yeah, that's the bia.
Right?
That's the bia.
Nesuah. That's just Nesuah. He does, right? So over here, so what happens? So she's still the sister of Zugaso.
Right.
So he's telling you, wait. So obviously you see over there, Alma, Zika, Asur Lechaisa. Zika does something, he's telling you to wait. So we according to this, if Amar Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Beseira, and Shmuel Rabbi Yehuda Beseira, and in other words, to teach you that there is Zika. If there is Zika, that goes back to Rabbi Yehuda's statement of the mother of the Shaveris Yavam is Asur. So I'm like, D Rav. What is it? If it was going to Rav, what would you say? Kasha Rav at the Rav would be a contradiction of Rav, because Rav, Rav, the mother of Shaveris Yavam who dies is mutter, and over here you see, which proves over there that there is no Zika, and over here it proves there is Zika. So Dilma Rav, maybe it's just my chlekes of a rhyme. The Rav is not condition of Rav. Just there's a machlokes between Rav Yehuda and Rav Huna as to exactly what Rav said. So Gemara says now, Kevin the Mishmei the Shmuel behedya Mishmei the Rav Kamarai leishavkina. All right. So he said, no, that since over there we heard of B'Shem Shmuel, right? And if you want to say that Rav Yehuda was just B'Shem Rav and Machlokes Amoraim, so we don't leave, right, something which we heard, B'Vadai B'Hedya, Shmei Shmuel B'Hedya, Umokmina Kamarai V'Liba D'Rav, in order to say it's a Machlokes. So since we actually heard, it was some people had the gears of Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So therefore we go according to that, as opposed to say it was Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, and it's a machlekes between Rav Yehuda Amar Rav and Rav Huna Amar Rav, is that's what Rav said. And Amar Rav Kana, he said the Shmaitze, Kamed Rav Zvi, he said the Shmaitze for Rav Zvi, Behardia, Amar Asnachi Masnino. You guys learn it this way. Actually, us, we learn it another way. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, it says Beferish, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Shomeres Yavam Shemesa, a Shomeres Yavam that died, the woman died, went to Yibum, she died, Asr B'Ima. Her, the guy who's supposed to do Yibum with, i.e. the Shimon, right? He is us to her mother. Alma, Ksav Yezika, this is the Zika, also the Shmuel Tami, and Shmuel goes to Shitasa, Damar Shmuel, Halach Rav Yehuda Meseira, Halach is like Rav Meseira. In our case, or in the case over there, with when one of the brothers does kedushin with the sister of the Shomeres Yavam, we tell him to wait until Yibum is performed. Utsricha, and we need both cases, right? We need both cases of Shmuel. Diashmin and Yezika. If we just said Yezika, Havamina Hani Milibachat, I would have thought that there's only Zika in the case of one brother. If I'm a tray low, but there's two brothers, maybe I would say there's no Zika Kamash blood. That even with two brothers, right, there is Zika. And it was the case over here when the guy does kedushin. There's two brothers involved, right? There's two brothers involved, and even then there's still a Zika between the third guy who did kedushin and her. So therefore she's achos grasso, and therefore it's a problem.
Why after the guy brother does Yibum, can the first guy then marry the one he had engaged? Isn't still achos isha because there was a Zika, and now he's marrying the wife of his.
Right. So that's Zika. Right. I hear what you're saying. Right. So. Right. So according to Zika, I mean, we'll have to see more in terms of the Zika, but how that works. How right. Even if there was Zika, now you're marrying achos grasso. If we just said in this case over here, I would have thought right? This is only while they're alive. While she's alive, there's Zika then. But in a scenario after Misa, in other words, let's say there's just two brothers, right? And then one brother dies, and then she's a Shomeres Yavam, and then she dies. Maybe you think that when she dies, the Zika is gone, he can go ahead and marry the mother. So the Zika Kamash B'lan, the Zika B'chli Paga. Therefore, Zika with nothing does not leave. Fine. Now Mishnah says. Now, very similar case to the previous Mishnah. Now, let's go back. There's two brothers. So, obviously, he has a wife, right? And the oldest brother dies. The Yavam Hasheni has Eish Zachid. This guy says, okay, fine, no problem. And he also has another wife, right? Okay, mitzvah, I'm the big mitzvah guy, marries her, right? So now he has two wives. She was once married to the oldest.
And no relation
now,
to the wives.
No, correct. So he does Yibum, the Yavam Hasheni says, Eish Zachid, and then another brother was born, right? Another brother was born. Umeis, now this guy dies. Harishayna, the first one, she is pater because she was once married to Reuven, but she right. But but now she's falling again, but she can't fall to him because he
was not born
yet. Vashnia, and the second one,
Mishum
Sarasa, she's also pater because since she was the full co-wife of an erva, therefore she goes scot-free. However, Asaba Maimer, instead of marrying her doing Yibum, he does Maimer, he does Kedushin Rabbanan, right? We saw this earlier. Asaba Maimer, right? Umeis, and then he dies, and then he's born, right? Umeis. Hashnia Chaletzes, so she obviously is nothing, right?
Well, because she's not minor now. No, she's not minor.
No, but she is still Asian.
Right, but she's not minor anymore.
Well, the guy dies.
No, she was minor at the beginning.
Mimer, Kedushin.
Oh, Mimer.
Yeah. So now, does Mimer, right? Mimer's Kedushin, it's doing Kedushin instead of Yibum. So now, he dies. So for sure, she is Usher. right? Because she's Eisha Chashel Balamo. But her, not so sure because it wasn't a real Yibum. It was only Mimer. It was only Dirabana. So therefore, we say Shniya Chalitza V'lo Mitzvah. She has no Chalitza. They just, if you were married, then you really go off for nothing. Or maybe you can do Yibum. So we just say do Chalitza, and therefore it gets rid of something. And Rabbi Shimon says, Miyabein le'ez mehem sheyirtza. Rabbi Shimon says, so now remember, he was born after that. So Miyabein mehem sheyirtza, or choletz mehem sheyirtza. He can do Yibum to one of them or Chalitza to one of them. Now, what does he hold? We'll see. Now, Rabbi Shimon is not going in the case of Maimon. Okay, Rabbi Shimon is going in the first case, right? In the first case of talking about when he does Yibum, right? So he does Yibum, right? And then he's born. By the time he's born, any remnants of Ruvain is gone. Why? Because once Shimon does Yibum, it's like she was never married to Ruvain. And therefore, it's not an issue of Eishes Achiv Shalei B'Lamo, according to Rabbi Shimon, as we're going to explain. Zok to Gemara, Amra Vaishya, Chalak Rabbi Shimon, after Rishayna. Says Rabbi Shimon argues even in our first Mishnah. Now, let's recall for a second. Our first Mishnah, right? The first Mishnah of this pair. Excuse me. Was identical scenario, right? We were explaining what's he dies, and the first Mishnah says he was born, and then Yibum was born, and then Yibum occurred.
Yeah.
Okay, that was the case, right? This Mishnah is he does Yibum first, and then he's born. Right. Okay, now that's the difference between the two cases. That's the Reisha was he was born before the Yibum. The Sefer, our Mishnah says born after the Yibum. Now let's see. Mimai, why do you say Rabbi Shimon even argues in that case? Megatani Mishnah Yisera. Right? Because we have an explanation above Reisha Lamat. What's the reason why we needed the first case, right? If it's the Rabbanan, so now what's the case of the first one? The Rabbanan say, if he's born, okay, and she still didn't do Yibum yet, and she's waiting there, obviously, Aser, right? Obviously, he's Aser because she's still waiting Yibum. She can't do Yibum with him because he had a brother. So this case obviously is Asur because why? They hold even if he marries her first and born afterwards, she's still considered Eishes Achishila B'Lamo, right? She's still considered she was married to the oldest, and then he died, and then she did Yibum with Shimon, and then he's born. You might have a mindset, right, to say, well, since she's already married, any connection to Ruvain is completely gone, and therefore she's not a woman who's considered to be an erva. Even in that case, they say it's Asur. So if that case is Asur, no, it's in the Seifa. In this case, it was Asur. According for sure in the Reisha. Now, in the case of Yibum, when afterwards is born, that was the case of Seifa. When he finds her, right now, when he's first born, she's Behatera. In other words, her Yibum has already been taken care of. So Asur Rabbanan. Nevertheless, the Rabbanan say Asur. So Neilad, in the case of the Reisha, when he's born, do you need to teach us in that case? Elalav, rather now. So why are you teaching that case? The Rabbi Shimon, Yitzchak. Rather teach the case of Yitzchak. Matana Reisha, the Rabbi Shimon. And the Reisha is coming to teach the strength of Rabbi Shimon. That Rabbi Shimon holds that even if he's the first brother dies, the oldest brother dies, and then he's born, and now maybe, there's Zika there, Ruvain's there, maybe he's Asur to her forever. If he takes her Yibum, right, and then he dies, she's mutter to him, according to Shimon. Because once Shimon does Yibum, he takes care of any remnants of Ruvain, of the oldest. But Tana Seifa, and then what's the reason why we have the case of the Seifa, where the Yibum Mechlisa the Yibum is performed before he's born. The Seifa, the Rabbanan teaches the Rabbanan. The Bedin, right, the Rabbanan, even according to the Rabbanan that he's born, Behatera, in other words, he's born after she already did Yibum to the second brother, nevertheless, she's still considered to be Eisach Shalei B'Lamo. Uvadino didn't think Rabbi Shimon Reisha, and really we should have had also Rabbi Shimon's opinion in the Reisha. Elo not the Rabbanan ad b'sayim l'masayim v'hadar paligalayim. Right? So rather they want to say both cases according to Rabbanan, and then we throw in Rabbi Shimon at the end after we completed both cases. So Ella Eish Zachish B'Lamo, Rabbi Shimon Heichi Mishachza. So according to Rabbi Shimon, right, what's considered Eish Zachish B'Lamo? So Mishkachazla. So B'chad Acha. First of all, could just be right B'chad. Excuse me. right?
One brother.
One brother. In other words, that is just one brother, right? One brother is married to a woman, right? He dies. And then she says, oh, look, he's the only child. And all of a sudden, another brother is born. Oh, maybe she has to do even there. No.
Yep.
That's Ba'acham. Umeis. Umeis Benolo Ach, right? That was her, this whole thing, right? Bechad Ach, Umeis, then he dies. Inami, or betray, right? Or maybe it's a case of, right? In other words, there's two brothers, right? And the first one died, right? And then the second brother was, then she's waiting for Yibum or Chalitza, and the other brother was born afterwards. So since he didn't do Yibum or Chalitza, at this point, she's still ushered to him as Eish Dachi Shola B'Lama. Right? So Bishlama Yavam Echakad Naila. Now going back, what we said, Bishlama Yavam in a case of where there's Yibum, and then the third brother is born, the Levi is born afterwards. So he finds better. Ela Naila, but if he's born, my timer. What's the reason? So going back to the race, what's the reason for Rabbi Shimon? How could Rabbi Shimon even say in that case that should be mutter to him that it's not considered to be Eishach Yishalab Alamo? Because when he was born, she was awaiting Yibum from Ruvain, and he wasn't privileged or able to do Yibum because he wasn't born, he wasn't alive at the same time. My time is Ksaver Yesh Zika, the Zika Keknusa Damya. Big Chiddush, right? No, because why? Since there was Zika to brother number 2, to Shimon, right? Since there was Zika there, and then he was born, that Zika was like he basically took her in, right? It was like Makadish there. It was like Kedusha, right? He was Keknusa Damya, right? It was like he acquired her already, and therefore, since he acquired her already, there's no remnants of Reuven anymore, and she's part of Shimon, and therefore she's not considered to be Eishach Shel Abalam. So Maskal Rav Yosef, Pashta Zika, Umaimer mistakenly there was Shimon. We have a case where there's Zika and there's Maimer, and nevertheless we'll soon see that Rabbi Shimon was Masuvik, whether she's considered to be acquired or not. So Zika, Lechuda, but Zika by itself, big boy, you're going to tell me that, right? In this case, that the Zika does, acquire it. So what's that case? At the time we learned in the Mishnah. Shloisha achin nesun shloish nashim nachrias. So you have 3 brothers, right? All alive at the same time. And they married 3 women. All right, each of them married 3 women. Mazel.
Each of them married 1 woman.
Each of them married 1 woman. Thank you. Yeah, it was 9. Umeis echad mehem. Now the oldest dies. Let's look at this case. Umeis echad mehem. Now, so she needs even for one of the brothers. The Yosef Sheni Maimer, brother number 2, does Maimer. Kedushin derabbanan. Right? Does Maimer. So now, sort of married to not.
I understand. Why just abolish Maimer?
Umeis. We'll soon see why there's Maimer. Umeis. And then he dies.
How long is usually the Maimer?
But let's get this case.
Before Kiddush.
What?
How long is it?
They can do it right away. I mean, we do it nowadays.
Whatever.
Yeah, we do it. Yeah, but over there, they okay. But during those days, they used to wait a year until they had enough money. Okay. The ksuba, right? So he says, Umeis, he dies. So now, all of a sudden, you have this woman for sure falls to him,
yes. And
she was like married to him, never did Yibum or Chalitza, and was also sort of married to Shimon, or to the middle guy, right? Now, Harei Elu Chotzes Levisavos. Do Chalitza to her, do Chalitza to her, adios.
Why not? No, why not Yibum?
Huh?
Why not Yibum?
Let's see. We'll see. Yavam Yavam, right? Mishala Zikas Yavam, Echad B'Leishala Zikas Shnei Yavam. So over here, this lady, right, who was once the wife of the oldest, and then did Maimer this one, is actually falling to the third brother with sort of 2 Zikas, right? The Zika of brother A, brother B. So therefore, she is basically disqualified.
And then her tzara is also.
Huh? No, but Sarah needs to do it because perhaps it was nothing, and therefore she needs to Yibum Chalitza. However, Rabbi Shimon Aimer, miyabe li'ezim hem sheyirtza b'cholitza shniya. Says Rabbi Shimon, who's our Rabbi Shimon we're talking about. Remember, we wanted to say Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says either one of these you can do Yibum to her or Yibum to her, right? Even though he did Maimer, even either one right? And then do the chalitza. Why? Why does it say this? Right? The chalitza. Yivumi tabaylo. He can't do even to both of them. Why? The dilma yesh zika v'havi shnei yivamas habayis mibayisecha. Because perhaps the zika is like a marriage, right? And therefore, it's like two yivamas that are coming from the same house, and therefore both of them are married to Shimon, and therefore he's doing yibum with two women from one brother. You can't do that. You only take one woman and not two.
Is it status of a minor?
We'll get after it. We'll get at it. Also, he says, you can't say do yibum and the other one is pater. Why? The dilma ain't zika. Perhaps it's a zika. Perhaps the zika was nothing, and therefore there's really nothing between her and him, and therefore both of them need it. So you couldn't do even with one of them. Alma, what do you see over here? This Misvegele. You see his masupuk, Rabbi Shimon, in a case of with Mimer and Zika, we're still not sure if she's married to him. So how could you say before Rabbi Shimon holds that just Zika, right before the kid is born, and then he's born, the Zika is like a marriage? If we see Zika and Mimer together don't even create a marriage, how could you say Zika alone is a marriage? Stop here.
Good. Those dogs are